When the old gate groaned open, I saw not a house, but a canvas, weathered and waiting. They called it Blackwood Manor, a name that tasted of dust and forgotten things. I was a writer, you see, and my well of stories had run dry, leaving me parched and desperate. So I came here, to this desolate place on the edge of nowhere, believing that isolation would be my muse. The locals warned me away with hushed tones and sideways glances, speaking of strange noises and a palpable sorrow that clung to the air like morning mist. But I wasn't looking for comfort. I was hunting for a story, and the silence of this old house seemed pregnant with unspoken words. The moment I stepped inside, the air shifted, heavy and thick with the weight of years. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light, piercing through grimy windows, each one a tiny ghost in a sunbeam. I set down my suitcase, the sound swallowed by the cavernous quiet, and felt a strange sense of homecoming. The house was empty, yet it felt watched, its silence a living, breathing entity. I was here for inspiration, and as the heavy oak door clicked shut behind me, I had a feeling I was about to find more than I ever bargained for. In the days that followed, the house began to speak. It started as a faint murmur, a soft sigh carried on a draft that wasn't there. I would be at my desk, staring at a blank page, when a whisper would brush against my ear, as soft as a moth's wing. At first, I dismissed it as the groans of old timber settling, the wind whistling through a loose window pane. But the sounds grew more distinct, weaving themselves into the fabric of the quiet. They were fragmented, like snippets of conversations caught in a storm. I heard a child's giggle from the top of the grand staircase, a woman humming a lullaby in the empty nursery, a man's frustrated sigh from the locked study. These were not just noises, they were echoes, ghosts of emotions imprinted on the very walls. The house was a library of lives, and I was its sole reader. I started to write them down, piecing together the phantom narratives. There was Ilara, the young bride who waited for a husband who never returned from the war, and little Thomas, who played hide-and-seek in the halls until he faded from memory. The house was feeding me stories, and my pages began to fill with their lives, their joys and their sorrows. The whispers grew more insistent, more desperate, as if they were trying to tell me something crucial. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows and thunder shook the foundations, the fragmented voices began to coalesce. The giggles, the humming, and the sighs all braided together, their edges blurring until they sharpened into a single clear voice. It was a woman's voice, filled with a grief so profound it seemed to make the very air weep. It spoke of a hidden room, a secret kept behind the grand fireplace in the library. It told a story not of gentle melancholy, but of a brutal tragedy, of a love betrayed and a life unjustly taken within these walls. The voice belonged to the first mistress of the house, wronged and forgotten, her spirit bound to the place of her demise. The house wasn't just haunted by memories. It was held captive by one, a singular, piercing scream of injustice that had been trying to break through the silence for over a century. The storm outside raged, but it was nothing compared to the tempest of revelation that had just broken inside me. The house hadn't been whispering, it had been crying out for help. When dawn broke, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. The whispers were gone, replaced by a profound and peaceful silence. The single unifying story had been told, the final chapter revealed. My purpose here was suddenly clear, my path illuminated. The locals saw a dilapidated relic, a place of sorrow to be avoided. But I saw a sanctuary, a vessel of history that had chosen me as its voice. I'd come here seeking a story to write, but instead I found a story that needed to be written, a truth that needed to be heard. My work was no longer just about filling blank pages. It was about giving a voice to the voiceless, about setting a tormented spirit free through the power of words. My quest for inspiration was over, because I had found something far more significant, a calling. Leaving was no longer an option. I would stay, not as a resident, but as the house's chronicler, its memory keeper, and its final confidant. I picked up my pen, no longer a writer in search of a tale, but a historian ready to honor the legacy of the Whispering House.